Who said 3 hours? I'm curious.
I know, I just, my Zoom invite says 3 hours.
I hope not. I got a lot of things to do today.
My
Hey,
grandkids told
Ron, how
me.
you doing?
I'm good, Mitch. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing okay. Having a good summer
So far,
so far. Me too.
hopefully it won't end today, you know?
Let's hope not. I was down in Florida. I was there for 3 weeks, and at Dalton, and then I came home, and like the day I came home, I said I don't feel good. COVID.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
A mild case or?
Oh, very, very mild. Very mild.
It's going around, you know?
It really is. What are you going to do? You know?
I was happy I got it. I was
You
thrilled.
know what? So was I. I figure it's over with right now. I don't have to deal with it, right?
Yeah. Well, let me have it again.
Don't be there too sure. I got a short case of it in May after all 4 shots. It lasted 1 day. That's it. And I wish I hadn't taken the test. I wouldn't even known I had it. But
Right. Exactly.
yeah, that's exactly right. Let's hope that's it. It's mild to become something like the flu and we forget about it.
Hey, David, I didn't know you were going to be here today. Can they hear us? We hear each other.
They are,
Are they muted or something?
It might
Yes,
not be
there you
turned
go.
on yet.
we're not muted, so we should be able to hear them.
Ready?
Maybe Janelle didn't turn us on yet. So.
We hear you guys. We hear you.
Oh,
Good
you
morning,
do.
everyone. Welcome to the Financial Advisory Board Workshop Meeting on Thursday, August 23rd, 2022 at 11:30 a.m. Please make sure phones and electrical devices are silenced. Ms. Thompson, please call the roll.
Member Weiner? Member Weiner?
Yes.
Member Goldberg?
Present.
Member Packler?
President.
Member Greenwald?
Present.
Member Cornfeld?
Present.
Vice Chairperson Riami?
Present.
Chairperson Stern?
Present. Thank you. Again, for clarification, this is a workshop-only meeting. No motions or recommendations can be made. Members are to provide opinions only. And for those of you who are wondering why, we have our full board here, but 4 of the 7 are on Zoom. So according to the rules, we cannot hold a full meeting without having a majority present in the room. Just for clarification. Can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which is
One nation under God.
Due to the lack of physical quorum, it's not necessary to approve the agenda. Public comments are now open. Each speaker will be allowed 3 minutes to speak. Please state your name, last name, and address. And if you need a little extension, please let the chair know.
My name is Stephen Parks. I invest 408 South Ocean Boulevard. Before you today to discuss the IFRS, which will not discuss.
Someone speak louder.
Can't hear them.
Oh, it helps to have a microphone on, doesn't it? Thanks a lot.
So I start all over again? Okay, my name is Stephen Parks. I live at 4408 South Ocean Boulevard. I'm here as a public addressee at this point in regards to the ILA agreement, which we're going to consider today for the benefit of the commission. I took a look at the agreements, which were basically sent to us, I think, last week, the final draft, and I have some concerns and questions for you, which I'd like you to address. In particular, I'm a little bit confused by some of the issues that have been raised in the agreement regarding values associated with the services that are going to be rendered by the building department. I don't know if there's any background documentation which is available to the public, but I was given only a very basic sheet which shows fixed costs and variable costs, and I have no access to the cap government contract, which effectively provides this information to us and gives us the rates. I want you to consider or at least look at some of the issues associated with the contract in particular. And I think it's important for you to have an idea of what the contract consequences could be insofar as what it would go to the town's costs associated with the provision of the services. So in particular, the contract fails to mention cap government as the approved subcontractor of this particular services. Now, I understand that the contract was written in a generalized format, and it suggests that the building inspections are done by people who are hired by Highland Beach. But in this case, it's actually subcontractors of Highland Beach. And I think there is a legal distinction there, but it's entirely up to you to consider that and discuss that. And I'm referencing section 1 at this point because the section 1 of the contract states that there is a situation where building inspections were hired by Highland Beach. So I think you should consider putting in or asking or suggesting to the commission or the town manager that they include a specific provision saying that we have the right to subcontract the services and we're currently subcontracting those services for issues associated with liability. I also went through the contract and decided to, I'm asking you regarding some ambiguities regarding zoning compliance issues. If you look at the actual agreement on section 2, it suggests that the responsibility for zoning compliance vests solely with Gulfstream. And that's in section B1, section 2B1. And then if you look at the actual section 2B2 or 2B, it says that Highland Beach will check for compliance with the zoning code. So there's an issue there, which I'd like you to explain or at least understand better as to what they were driving at when they wrote this agreement. And it's a matter of basically, time's up. Would you like me to continue?
If you know, I'll give you another 2 minutes if you like.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. The other issues, basically, my concerns, at least with the agreement, were violation concerns. There's no issue, there's no addressing the fact that any additional fees that are associated with the permits would result in violation with fines that would be given back to the city or would be given back to cap government, whatever. I don't know how that works because I'm not sure what your agreement with cap government is. I was told before the meeting by Mr. Delaney that basically cap government is we're piggybacking onto a county contract with cap government. So whatever the structure of fees are would be associated with that particular agreement. I think it's important for the board to review that agreement and see how its impact would affect this particular ILA. I don't know whether there's going to be a provision for cap to increase that, if there's any way of getting cap to decrease or increase costs, or what the pass back will be regarding fines and fees. I'm trying to go as fast as possible. So if you want me to, as I said, speed it up, let me know. There's another provision in this contract, which is a concern that I think you should address, or at least I appreciate your illuminating me on. Besides code violations, the consumer inquiry section relates to the fact that the building official is the only intermediary between Gulfstream's consumer complaints and Gulfstream. At least that's what the contract says. From my experience working with contractors and working with building inspectors, there has to be a dialogue between the building inspectors and the individual contractors at all times. So what normally happens in other localities, in the morning and in the afternoon, the building inspectors are available for a certain period of time to address the concerns. Here, the contract specifies that the only individual that would be the intermediary for a consumer complaint, presumably a contractor or a homeowner, would be the building official. And I don't know if that's a doable situation, but I'd like you to address that to the building department and see what the building official feels about that, or whether it was just a matter of not specifying that he can delegate that responsibility. The other item which I found to be of interest on this contract that I'd like you to illuminate me on is on section 7, which is the the town of Gulfstream has to give Highland Beach a certificate of insurance, but there's no specificity as to what the insurance is. Is it $1 million policy? Is it a $500,000 policy? Is it some kind of a program which we basically need to have in place? And the reason why it's particularly interesting is because the liability associated with failures on the part of the inspectors comes back to Highland Beach. So if there's a situation where cap government doesn't do their job properly and there are subcontractor, meaning Highland Beach's delegated subcontractor, the liability could affect the city. We could end up being in a situation where we're in between the Gulfstream residents and us, and or our inspectors or whatever. So not having proper insurance and not having proper background documentation on the inspectors themselves could result in an issue. And beyond that, the rest of the contract is self-explanatory, I believe.
Okay, thank you, thank you. I would think that in the presentation from the building department, we'll answer the questions that you brought up. Thank you.
Good morning, gentlemen. Thanks for letting me address you this morning. My name is Jack Halpern. I'm a resident of the town for the last 26 years. I live at 4511 South Ocean Boulevard. I guess the question to me when I look at this is, why is this being pushed so hard for the deal? Particularly because the board pushed, our commission pushed for a change in the charter to not sell essential services. I repeat the word essential services, which they defined as fire, police, and water. Let me ask you a question. Your water heater breaks and you have no water heater. That's no essential services. I think people I talk to think that's essential. So why is selling building department services any different in the spirit that our town residents voted well over 90% not to sell services in our charter? Gulf State was negotiating with our consultant. That was our consultant. They were working to make a deal to provide these services when they're approached by our town to sell our services. We're already getting good department services now based on the dozens of emails the Committee to Save Highland Beach received. We can only go downhill as our consultants and staff would be traveling at least 1/2 hour per permit to get to Gulfstream, taking them away from Highland Beach resident services. When we get into season, all travel time gets increased. If you've been through Linton Boulevard intersection with A1A in season, you know what I'm talking about. More important is we now got FDOT on A1A that's going to start a 1.5 year long project. You can see what's happening now with the construction in town. Can you imagine what we're talking about time-wise? It was not unreasonable to think that we'd be talking at least a 1 hour round trip at that point. This will be a major impact on schedules for our consultants and building staff going back and forth. The travel reimbursement and hourly consultant costs do not show up as an add-on for permits. I've been a consultant for 52 years, and I haven't met a consultant yet that each travel time and each travel expenses. So Gulf State averages about 800 permits. If we assume a 1/2 hour minimum out of season in August to 1 hour in season and much, much more when we get around to the Florida DOT construction and $150 an hour fee, we can talk about an extra cost for the permit that is not covered in the permit cost of anywhere from $60,000 to $120,000, which would then reduce this $300,000 supposedly we're going to have as a reduction in our overhead. So where's the gain to our town? With this reduction, we're talking about a savings to our overhead of 0.01% of our budget. So why are we really doing this? For that, Mr. Mayor, I think it's necessary because we couldn't have any voting here and they cannot express an opinion that you postpone the vote on Thursday, the same way you did on, can I have some additional time?
Continue.
The same way you postponed the vote on this on August 2nd to August 4th, move the agenda to August 4th and then postponed it on August 4th. Can we do that again at this next commission meeting on Thursday and move that forward on the agenda? So this committee can meet again and give its opinion in terms of what they think of the financial aspects of a 0.01% change to our budget on this. So why do we want to expand this? I don't know. I don't think it's 0.01% money. I don't think it's helping a neighborly town down the block that has the 11th richest town in the country that was already negotiating for a contract. Why? I have my own feelings and my own understandings that I've been told that I prefer not putting out in public. But there are other reasons to this. You know it and I know it. Thank you and thank you.
Thank you. Okay, as far as the agenda is concerned, due to the lack of physical quorum, it's not necessary to approve the agenda. We already took care of that. Now, staff is requesting that.
David.
I'm sorry, John. Oh, I'm sorry, you, please.
Thank you. My name is John Shoemaker. In full disclosure, I am a commissioner, but I'm also speaking here as a citizen, resident of Highland Beach. And I've reviewed the documents. I appreciate all of you joining this meeting and the sacrifice that you all have to make. I know what that's like. So I just wanted to hit some key points. What I would be looking for, not only as a resident, but also as a town of town interest, includes, are we really going to save about $300,000 in this transaction that can be used by the town in the budget? Is it really a violation of the charter that's being promoted? I don't think so. Is it a deal with 90 days cancellation notice? Which means to me, it would be, basically no risk or low risk. The financial win, is that real for us? It may be mitigated by those who have opinions that maybe $200,000 or $300,000 is not enough, a lot of money, and we shouldn't be, this is a trivial kind of contribution. Really? Is that what we want? Are we helping a neighbor who was cut off by Delray, just as we had a contract with Delray that was not in our best interests in the case of EMS and fire? I think the charter violation, by the way, is kind of out of context when it says essential services. So you might want to look at that. But financially, this is what's important about your all involvement here is, does this have financial merit and a positive contribution to the town? That is essentially very important for you to address, as well as obviously the intent here to answer the question why is to help a neighbor while also helping Highland Beach so that it's a dual win. If it's not, let us know. Lastly, I think Mr. Steve Parks makes a very good suggestion about subcontracting. In a worst case scenario, would we need to do that? Because as I understand it, we are only going to be using CAP as a variable cost to deliver the right services for Gulfstream. The fixed cost won't change. That is, we're not adding people, we're not adding costs. Now, if it became a problem, again, we have a 90-day notice. Please confirm that, if you would. Thank you very much for your involvement. I appreciate, and I stayed on time.
Are there any other public comments? We're hearing none. I will close public comments. Staff is requesting that July 7th meeting minutes be moved to the next meeting for approval, which we will do. There be no unfinished business. We'll move to new business. The first item on new business is the intercoastal agreement between Town of Highland Beach and the Town of Gulfstream for Building Department Services. I refer this item to Building Official Jeff Rims. Hi, Jeff.
Board, it's a pleasure. Thank you for giving me time, and for those on Zoom, thank you for being here. And I'll wait for the presentation to show up on the monitor. Okay. All right. So this is concerning, obviously, the interlocal agreement to provide building code services only to the town of Gulfstream. This was initiated by the town of Gulfstream. Their manager reached out to our manager during one of a meeting and said, hey, do you think you might be interested in providing building permitting services for us? We're having some difficulty with Delray Beach. So at that point, the town manager came to me and he said, hey, look into this, but only come back to me if you think this could actually help the town, if it's feasible and if this could be good for the town. And that's exactly what I did. And then after gathering some data and talking with CAP government and talking with our software provider, I was able to determine that not only was this feasible, but this would most definitely benefit the residents of this town for sure. And of course, the building department. And we're going to go over why. Now, there's a timeline here where this was discussed at a public meeting back in June, twice at a special meeting. The Financial Advisory Board heard a component of this from the Director of Finance during your last meeting. And I can go on and on and on. This was in the newspaper and recently in the manager's minute, which brings us to the agreement. So this is not new news going back to June. So we received the initial agreement and staff looked at it just to decide if everything looked good on our end, and we had some changes. It was then reviewed by the town attorney, which had several amendments. This has gone back and forth several times until it was kind of fine-tuned into something. There was some direction by the commission, which led to even more fine-tuning of the amendment or of the agreement. It does absolutely define the responsibilities of both towns. And the fees for both towns are based on the Highland Beach fee schedule. And that fee schedule includes re-inspection fees for failed inspections. There's a whole bunch of things that are in there. Highland Beach retains 100% of the fees. We're not giving back any portion at all. We receive and keep 100% of the fees that we receive, not only from our own permit holders, but also from those of the town of Gulfstream. Now, this is for building, permitting, inspection, and plan review only. It does not include planning, zoning, or code compliance. Now, the town of Gulfstream is responsible for their own planning and zoning and code compliance, but when it comes time for zoning, we just have to ensure, and I've already built this into the software because I've already have a model of this ready to go, where all we have to make sure is that Gulfstream signs off on zoning before we can move forward, which is standard for, for ourselves and for everyone else. So we actually have it set up right now where we cannot move forward until they approve for planning or zoning. So that component of it, we're not doing any planning or zoning. We're just verifying that they're okay on their end because they have a lot of rules and regulations way above and beyond what we do. It's similar to like an HOA when it comes time for colors and roofs and things that we don't have here. All applications are coming through an online portal. So everything, just like now, we are currently 100% paperless. We are going to continue to be 100% paperless. No one has to really walk into the building department unless they want to or they want to have a meeting. Okay. And Gulfstream, this is a big one, is responsible for the administration of all consumer inquiries. So whenever they have a problem or a permit holder or the owner has an issue, they have to first go through Gulfstream. Gulfstream, of course, could check in with us. Gulfstream will actually have full access to the software to be able to make their own determination of what's going on. So that's going to cut down on any of our administrative workload. And Gulfstream also provides a hold harmless and indemnifies Highland Beach against any claims. And that's built into the contract in addition to the insurance. And it can be canceled by either party with 90 days written notice, which is really one of the better parts of it. Now, the benefits. If I say we're going to have improved services to the residents of Highland Beach, you're going to question me, well, how is that possible when you're taking on a bigger workload, right? That's a good question to ask. It makes sense. Well, increased CAP staffing levels. There are only so many people out there that do what I do. There's only so many people that are inspectors out there. It's very difficult for us to find and hire people. And that has become, that's why we use our hybrid model, where CAP government provides the inspectors and plan reviewers that I work with, and I vetted to make sure that they're a good fit, because there are many that were here that are no longer allowed, that I don't allow them to work here. So we found some really good people. And I got commitments from CAP to give us some of those people on a full-time basis. Now, we are not hiring anyone for the town, but we're going to increase the staffing level to have them more availability, because right now we're one of many towns that they have to cover. So what happens is we don't know what inspector we're going to get some of the time. And they may only have 2 hours to swing through and get so many inspections completed. So we kind of get split up with everyone else, and it hurts our consistency a little bit. But now we're going to have these people on a larger scale commitment, because now we'll have the ability and we'll have the workload for them to come in and not only do the inspection, but also be able to do the plan review. And this way, it's going to give us more consistency. It's going to decrease the plan review time, because now when they're not busy doing inspections, they're going to be doing plan review. So our turnaround time, which is already excellent, is going to be even better. And I already talked about the consistency of the inspector. So now when we have full-time inspectors assigned here, or close to full-time, whatever we need, then what's going to happen is if someone starts a project, they're going to stay with it until the end, so that you don't have one inspector coming in and saying, okay, I'm okay with this, show this me on the next inspection. And the next guy comes in and doesn't know what the other one said and has a different opinion. So this will give some consistency now, which is what the contractors want, which is better for the homeowner. You have better consistency. And the travel to and from is CAP government vehicles and CAP government gas. And since we are on the southern end of Palm Beach County, and we are serviced by CAP's Palm Beach County office, which is in West Palm Beach, most of them, if not all of them right now, either live or are coming from the CAP office in West Palm Beach. So we already went over this, where in the mornings they can come down and stop on their way at Gulfstream and knock those inspections out, and then come down here and finish out the rest of their day doing inspections, and then coming in at the end of the day to do plan review. There's none of this to and from and back and forth. They're not going to come here and go back up unless they choose to. And some of them may opt to schedule their inspections for the afternoon. So they'll come here in the morning, they'll work, they'll do their plan review and inspections. And then when they're done, they'll stop on the way home going north to Gulfstream to finish those inspections. And again, it's their gas, it's their vehicles. Our vehicles aren't going up there. On a rare occasion that I have to go up for a meeting or a reason, you know, it's normal for me to have to travel. I have meetings in West Palm Beach and, you know, all the time. It's normal. It's not like I'm going to be taking a town car every single day or twice a day back and forth. It's not going to be very often, because most of my responsibilities are administrative in here. And I also do a lot of plan review. And we don't have to hire any additional employees at all. Now, the additional revenue stream will increase the administrative fees recouped by the town, which is going to go to the general fund, because we're going to have more to pull from. But the biggest component of this, and I believe Dave is going to talk about this really and more, is our fixed costs within the town don't go up. They stay the same. Our fixed costs, because we're not hiring anyone. So our fixed costs stay exactly the same. And now that revenue that comes in, whatever percentage they are, that percentage is going to pick up a portion of those fixed costs. And when they pick up a portion of it, if things get slow, instead of the town and our permit holders only trying to finance, you know, the 100% of our fixed cost, now the town of Gulfstream is going to be eating up a component a portion of those fixed costs. And the variable expense, which is cap only, is going to be picked up by the increased revenue from the town of Gulfstream. And after evaluating the existing and projected numbers, I will be recommending a permit fee decrease, but in the form of a continued discount to the residents of Highland Beach only. So that the commission this year, a few months ago, passed a resolution to give our permit holders a 10% reduction, 10% discount in permit fees. It is my understanding we're going to continue that, but it's only going to apply to the town of Highland Beach because this is our infrastructure. We built it. We've built up our reserve account, and through the fees of our residents and our permit holders, really our permit holders. So the town of Gulfstream will not be privy to that. So they're going to pay what they've agreed to, which is the fee schedule that we have, which we're going to leave the fee schedule alone, but continue that decrease. All right. Now, before we get into with David, our Director of Finance, I just want to make sure that everyone is fully aware of how this operates. The hybrid system means that cap government is always a variable. We never know exactly how much their costs are going to be because it's based on our permit fee volume with the number of permits issued, number of permits received, and the number of inspections. And all of this has been charting up significantly since I took over a little over 2.5 years ago working for the town. I've been here for I've been here since January of 2019, but I actually started as a cap employee. I was here as a contractor. So I understand their system. And as a person who used to own my own third-party inspection agency and who is been in a for-profit mode his entire life, when I look at our opportunity here to increase the level of service to our community, offset costs and increase revenue, which, my rent over there isn't free for me to operate and have access to the town and town. So we have to pay a administrative fee back to the town, right? Because it's not free rent. If we had our own building, we'd have to pay for that because of the type of fund we are. Now, more of that cost, that's relieving some pressure off of our permit holders, which is in the form of that discount. And that's picked up more, a higher percentage by the town of Gulfstream to do this. So as a for-profit person, which I am not in this capacity, but my former life, to me, this is like a no-brainer. We're going to improve services and at the same time be able to reduce the pressure on our own residents and increase some revenue that we can then put into the general fund to pay for us existing over there and taking up space. And then David.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Stephen Parks for staying to hear the explanation and also make your public comment, right? I like the fact that you made a public comment and now you're going to stay and hear the rest of the story as opposed to some that don't. I've updated the budget. And so let's just look at some of the numbers that are floating around. Okay, so if you have a pen and paper in hand, so what I predicted was that we were going to have about $447,000 of revenue, right? Inspection revenue for taking Gulfstream on. What is that based on? That's based on kind of their average revenue, what we looked at. Okay. Then what I did is I took out what additional costs cap was going to be. Okay. So I have $447,000 of top line revenue. My expenses are $243,000. Okay. Just for adding Gulfstream. Okay. So what is that net to the bottom line? That nets to the bottom line $203,000. So I have additional revenue minus our variable costs, which is cap government, again, basing it on historical data from Gulfstream, right? Looking at the ratio of what we pay versus our permit fees. And so what drops down to the bottom line? An additional $203,000 drops down to the bottom line. Okay, David, now what are you going to do with this $203,000? Well, we are going to give $128,000 in the form of a 10% discount to our residents. And then what we're also going to do is we're going to add $50,000 is coming back into the general fund. So those are the numbers. This is a good agreement. I appreciate Mr. Parks' expertise as a construction attorney, as I think you had told me. We have insurance, right? Which is a fixed cost. We have an agreement. You know, the way this is going to be successful is in three areas: contract management, and the contractor. That is the definition of a successful project. And so at the end of the day, I believe that we do have all three. This agreement is in the spirit of what a interlocal agreement does. It provides additional help to those surrounding communities where we can provide that without costing us. And so in my opinion, and again, this is what I do for a living, I just look at the numbers, right? And so when I see that potential revenue is coming in at $417,000, and it's only going to cost me $293,000, and I'm going to drop to the bottom line $203,000. And what am I going to do with that? I'm going to give that back to our residents in the form of a 10% reduction in only their fees, not in Gulfstream's, in our residents' fees. In my opinion, this is a very, very good agreement. We're two local governments working together hand in hand. And we have a great building department. See, we have a lot of the embedded fixed costs here that are already covered. So that's already covered. And then not only that though, but our fixed cost, as my memo alludes to, now gets spread out over more customers. Listen, eventually, the construction in this area, right, will tend to slow down, right? And so at the end of the day, now we've reinsured, we've almost insulated ourselves by bringing on additional customers that can cover our fixed costs. So again, thank you, Jeff, for your excellent presentation. If the board has any questions, but these are the numbers that I inputted into our new updated budget and feel pretty comfortable about it. So
I'm sure we do. I just want to ask you a fast question. Have you projected out?
I have a question as
Not
well.
only, yeah,
My hand has been raised.
I'll recognize you in one moment. Have you looked and projected out over a period longer than a year, over a 5-year period, and how this will affect the finances?
No, I did not. Typically, that's just one of the things of local governments. I haven't done it this way. Local governments, because we only look at current resources, right? It's a little bit different than for-profit companies. It is a little bit. Local governments only look at a year timeframe. The reason why is because we're trying to adjust ad valorem taxes, things like that, gas taxes, things like that. So when we look at budgets, we're only looking at that time period.
I understand that, but looking at a new program, looking at the financial impact on not only for 1 year, but over a period of time, I think would be an appropriate thing to do.
I agree. And I would say that as long as our revenue right, exceeds the variable cost and the amount of money which would be called the contribution margin could then cover our fixed costs, it's better and better. The reason why is because next on the agenda, we have an increase in our health insurance, a lot of employee type of costs. None of those costs are going up. I have budgeted for increases in cap government's estimated expenses. So I've already tried to account for that. We've even added an RGL. On RGL, we've added 2 separate lines, one for cap inspection services for Gulfstream revenue and another one an expense so we can track it. We can track it quarterly and see how we're doing.
Okay, thank. Let me see if I can control between the Zoom and present here. Let me start with the Zoom. I see some hands up, and then after we finish any questions there, we'll address it the people who are sitting here. So who do we have up on the left there? I can.
Peter.
Okay, we can start with you, please.
I can't hear you. Did you say me?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm fully in support of this. I think it makes a tremendous amount of sense to do it. My 2 questions. I, first of all, do not believe that you should cut the fees for building permits for Highland Beach residents as well. I do think that whoever was speaking made a very good comment that things will slow down as we get to higher interest rates. We need to be able to cushion that building permits to support a slowdown in the marketplace. How many days a week are we going to be committed to Gulfstream? Is there a set day that they're going to go there? Or I think that would protect Highland Beach residents, that we will come first, 4 days a week, and we'll be in Gulfstream 1 day a week.
No, under the Florida Building Code, we have minimal amounts of time to respond to inspection requests and so on and so forth. So each town, and this was looked at pretty extensively between myself and CAP government, each town will have the full 5 days a week of inspections and plan review.
So we can't limit that to 3 days a week for them. And 5
No, we
days.
have so many days to respond to inspection requests under the Florida Building Code.
No, I understand that, but how many requests do they get in a day? It's just, I believe they're smaller than we are, correct?
Yeah, they're significantly smaller than us, and we average sometimes 500-600 or more inspections a month, and they would be about 30% of that. So I would expect that they're going to have, 2 to 3, 4 inspections a day, which again could be covered either on the way in or on the way out by the inspectors who are going back north anyway.
Okay, and who determines their fees for inspections? And can we raise their fees versus Highland Beach fees?
The inspections are included in the permit fee, and the number of inspections required are already determined by the permit type. If there is a failed inspection or someone wasn't present, there is a reinspection fee that gets assessed, and that money comes back to the town of Highland Beach to cover our costs for someone from CAP having to go out a second time to a location, whether Gulfstream or Highland Beach.
So can we double those fees for reinspection?
How would we do that?
Make it a profit center? It also puts the onus on the contractor to do the right thing, knowing that he's going to have to pay that inspection fee.
Well, they're already aware, and there already are reinspection fees in place. And there is a state statute that requires that if someone fails an inspection twice for the same thing, that we have to charge them 4 times the fee, the reinspection fee. And that's already accounted for in the permit fee schedule. So there's a progressive fee schedule to follow the state statutes.
Okay.
Thank you, Ron.
Okay. Just as Peter's comment, I agree with the first comment. This whole thing, as far as giving 10% back to the residents.
Can't hear you.
You're breaking up.
You're breaking up.
Could you get closer to the mic on your end or the phone? Thank you.
Okay.
Speak a little louder.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, much better.
Okay. First, as far as I agree with Peter on his first statement that we shouldn't give 10% back to the town of Highland Beach. That whole thing is being done to acquiesce, the pushback that the town seems to be getting over this contract, number one. Number two, as far as hitting up Gulfstream for more money or worrying about our inspections versus theirs. I mean, look, we're contracting the entire process as far as their inspections go to CAP. We're not involved. There's no reason to make money, extra money. We're already making money off of this program. There's no need to try to gouge Gulfstream because we are trying to do the quote neighborly thing in this. But back to the entire process in general, I really can't even believe that we're doing this, that we're involved, that our town commission is involved. Other than the town commission, I believe, has to approve any contracts that are signed by our town. With the exception of that, this is beyond belief for me. This is an absolute vote of no confidence in our officials in our town. Do we think that Jeff, who's our building official, does he know what the hell he's doing? Do we think that David, our CPA and our financial director, do we think that he knows what the hell he's doing? Do we think that Marshall, who's our town manager, do we think that he knows what the hell he's doing with a simple project like this? Nobody should be involved but those individuals. I mean, I don't really care if Chief Hartman wants to loan a police vehicle to the town of Boca. You mean he has to come and ask us if that's okay? This is ridiculous. This is an agreement with a 90-day out. Jeff went through, I don't care if we make a penny on this. Jeff went through the reasons that this is beneficial to us on the soft side. That's all we need. And the fact is none of us need any time with this because this is a joke. The only reason that this is involved is we've got some people who didn't look at the contract, who are trying to say that this project violates the town charter now, that the spirit of it, that's a bunch of BS. The spirit of the town charter amendment is the fact that the town, without approval by the town itself, cannot offload in any way, meaning transfer of control. That's what they're referring to. The transfer of control of the police department, the fire department, or the water department. That's what it's concerned about. I mean, this thing is this is like, in my mind, Marshall wants to order some toilet paper. I mean, we have to sit here and approve this thing and go through. Well, let's see now. Do we make any money? Do we lose any money? I mean, my God, we don't. This is an absolute. If I were these people, these are overqualified people, including our attorney and everybody involved here. Well overqualified for these positions for our little town. And we're saying, as a group, as a community, we don't have confidence in you to make this decision? Give me a break. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Ed.
Me?
Yes, Ed.
Okay, I'm agreeing with everything I heard, so I don't have much to say, which is hard to believe. We are, and we're going to go over the numbers for the year to date. If I'm reading it correctly, this exercise of the building department has been profitable for 10 months, being run by very, very qualified people. I'm agreeing with everything I've heard. I'll hold maybe some numbers because we're going to go over the 10-month financials, but it seems, if I'm reading it correct, it's very profitable, and this is going to add some dollars. And I think we are overthinking this. The 90-day hook is very important to me. It's not a 10-year, we got buried. That's not going to happen. I don't see any downside. And if there is, and we're missing it, we could catch it within 90 days and do something about it. that's all I have to say. I think when we get to the 10-month review by David, I'll have some comments. I want to make sure I was reading this right regarding the profitability that we've had for 10 months. Nice job, gentlemen.
Thank you. Anyone else on the screen have any comments? Okay, then let's go to Dr. Greenwald.
Yeah, I have not too many questions, but a lot of comments. I think there are two major things that we have to consider. One is, can we do this? It's pretty clear, I think, that Jeff, David, Marshall, I think we have the expertise to do this. So that's part of the can we's. The can we that I think that the commission has to be 100% sure about, because I look at potential conflict over this as possibly our greatest risk with this project. And that is, some of the legal questions that have been at least raised. Some have been raised publicly, one or two I have on my own. I know they've been considered, but I want to make sure that the commission, before approving this project, feels very comfortable with it, just because of potential public sentiment out there. The first one that we've heard a lot about is, well, can we do this at all with the charter? Because, it's a quota, it's that we're selling things. And that, having been on the Charter Review Committee and watching all the discussions, I think is very clear. I mean, it's limited in the charter to police, fire, rescue, water. We might have put sewer in there, except that sewer is largely already outsourced to Delray, and we thought that that would just open up another can of worms that we didn't want to get into. But clearly, building is not included under that, so I'm not a lawyer, but I don't have any problems with that one. The second category in the charter that could potentially fall under is the 350,000 category, where the town by charter is not allowed to enter or spend, but the actual word is not spend, it's allocate more than $350,000 for any project, new project, extension of a project, or whatever. This is going to be, based on David's numbers, more than $350,000 a year. Again, I'm not an attorney, and I think that the difference would be that this would be considered an allotment, would not be considered an allotment. It's not tax dollars, it's money coming in from a different source. But that's something that, again, I think that the commission needs to be very reassured before moving forward, that this isn't going to be a potential source of aggravation and so on for certain members of the community. The third thing that I wanted to bring up, although the numbers that were presented today were only $50,000 may end up in the general fund, was the whole question about an independent building department, which was my impression from previous discussions, had to be separate from the general fund and therefore could not really be a profit-making center for the general fund. In other words, you can't generate a certain number of profit in the building department and then use it to pay off increased health insurance premiums for the police officers. You can use it to pay off increased health insurance premiums for the building department people, but it would have to be money spent within the building department. So it's not a free transfer of money into the general fund. And I just want to make sure that I'm getting that right and everybody is clear on that. A couple of people raised questions about ILAs. Altogether, that's very clear in the charter. I think that the commission has the right to enter into interlocal agreements. So I don't think that that's an issue at all. And then this wasn't on my list until today, but should the commission decide to go forward with this project, there were some very good questions that I'm not the least bit competent to comment on regarding details in the contract that clearly that Mr. Parks and others I think have raised that clearly need to be looked at before anything is signed. But those are my first comments for today. I'll comment further later about some of the should we's rather than the can we's. Thank you.
Anything?
Sure. So thank you everyone for your comments. Thank you, David. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you to the town lawyer. I understand it has been reviewed and the determination was that there's not a violation or conflict, so that's good. You know, from my view, I think what we're dealing with is a perception versus reality, right? The perception is we are entering into an agreement with another town. We're going to be outsourcing services. We're going to be traveling to another town. The reality is we just got through an election where the residents unanimously voted not to outsource or sell essential services. I don't disagree that this is not necessarily an essential service, but I think the reality over the perception for the residents in the town of Highland Beach is that we expect a level of service here at this town hall. And part of the reason why we live in a small town is to have a level of a concierge service. We want to know when we come to town hall, we can see the mayor, we can see the town manager, we can see the entire town. We know we can get service. So the reality of a resident coming back to town who's only here half the year and they come in and they need to see a building inspector or someone affiliated with CAP and they're 6 miles up, at Gulfstream, that could create an issue. So I go back to, perception versus reality. The perception, versus reality for me is that, yes, of course, we'd want savings, right? But I think if we're going to bring a plan forward and suggest to the commission, yes, they should proceed, right? We should have a plan for that savings, right? So from my view, and I think there was a comment made about putting money into the general fund without an allocation, right? If they had said, hey, that $200,000 in savings the first year, we wanted to build a dock out back for the police boat, right? And we wanted to allocate that money, it would make a lot more sense to me, from my view, right? To get on board with this. I'm still a little bit confused. I saw the mayor bring this forward with the commission. One of the things that he commented on was lowering the overall overhead, right? For the employees. But, that sort of goes down a slippery slope, right? Where we can start to outsource all sorts of services here within the town. Really anything that's process-based that doesn't require independent thinking could be outsourced. So I think, again, reality versus perception, we're starting down a road of lowering our potential overhead over the next couple of years if the mayor stayed in his current position. I think Vice Mayor Moore addressed the commission in the last meeting talking about increasing revenue to the town. It's one of the things that I've discussed since I've gotten involved here the past several years. We're sitting on what I believe is one of the most beautiful pieces of land here in Highland Beach. And that's the town hall property, right? And we are in dire need, right, of a modernization for our library. Putting a dock out back, putting a pavilion there, weddings, memorials, whatever we might want to do for the town, building more of a community. This is what people want to see. They want to see things moved more towards the central of the town, not things being moved outside the town. So again, I would, really want to focus on the fact that the perception versus the reality. The reality is we're going to save $200,000. The perception is we're going to be going 2 towns, away. So, as we start to move forward here, I'm not 100% on board with the agreement, but I think if we could find a way to use that 200,000, especially to help the police and the docks that may be needed out back, that might be, a good compromise from my view. Let's give feedback to the commission on how to use that money.
Point of clarification. Thank you. No, good, great questions. The $50,000, right now, the building department allocates money over to the general fund. Why? To cover our general fund's overhead. So it's just an allocation. Computers, cell phones, IT equipment, all that stuff that makes up overhead, right? And what I budgeted for was thinking to myself, okay, there's probably going to be a little bit of my time, a little bit of Marshall's time, a little bit more of additional general governmental input during this agreement. And so, you know what? Then the building department should reimburse the general fund for that allotted time. So that's why I slid $50,000, an additional $50,000 for my time, for the marshal's time, for the mayor's time, for all of those. Or maybe there's going to be additional, maybe we want, instead of a $10 million general liability policy, maybe we want a little bit more coverage. It just goes there to cover our general overhead allocation. And that's what that is. The other thing too, to keep in mind is that it's not a savings, and it's more of revenue minus expenses, right? Let's say next year, let's just be bizarre. Let's say next year, there's not one building permit that happens in Gulfstream. Then CAP doesn't bill us. So again, that money that drops to the bottom line, and the thought was, in order to benefit the customers of Highland Beach, I actually support the mayor's idea as far as giving a benefit for all of those residents that have been here through the years since the 1970s, the 1980s, that have built the building department, that now we give them a 10% discount. I can tell you that an agreement like this, an interlocal agreement where you're not incurring additional fixed costs and your variable costs are covered by outsourcing, it doesn't come around that often. And I would tell you that, in my opinion, that this is good because what it does is it spreads out our fixed costs. Instead of just our 3 miles, it spreads those fixed costs to Gulfstream as well. And I think we have the infrastructure. I think we have the staff expertise to be able to handle it. And everyone is here is correct. You know what? In 90 days, we'll report back. You know what? I think that would be a beautiful thing, right? Report back every 90 days to the finance committee on how the Gulfstream interlocal agreement's going. I've already set up, as I said before, I set up 2 additional GL accounts. We'll be able to track the revenues and the expenditures. And so that's just my opinion. Great questions though. But
Yeah, so regarding the discount, has anyone asked for a discount within the building department? Are there residents that are saying the fees are too high?
I have not had any complaints about the permit fees, but because we are similar to an enterprise fund where our revenue can only be used to keep our department running, it's a no profit. The word profit and income doesn't really exist in my world here. It's revenue and expenditures. I'm supposed to have basically a zero balance. I'm allowed to carry so much forward. But because my numbers in the building department's numbers have been so good, that we're in a position that the current town commission felt as though we need to start giving some of that money back to our residents and then reassess. We can reassess and either raise or lower fees in order to accommodate, so we get closer towards that zero, but yet still keep some of that money moving forward in case maybe down the road we have to have a separate building, we have to pay for something else. Unfortunately, that the money that's in that building department fund cannot be used for anything other than building department, but a part of our expenditures are the money that we have to send to pay for our portion of our expenses, for our rent, electricity, furniture, all these things that goes back to the general fund to offset. So we're paying for in the past, the building department really never paid for itself before.
So can that savings, right, get back to the general fund, the total amount, or no? No, it's only 50,000.
Well, what I did, right, you have to be reasonable, right?
Sure.
And so that's why, but again, I think there's more of a benefit. And one of our board members had said it perfectly, forget about the dollars and cents. What it is we're allowed to cover more of our fixed costs because again, I don't have a crystal ball in front of me. I know that extremely wealthy people aren't necessarily affected by changes in the economy. But at the end of the day, building will slow down. I would think. Now, granted, I haven't traveled this 3 miles of paradise and saw 1 square foot of where construction isn't going on right now. So it's amazing to me. And the amount of cranes that are in this area are phenomenal. But at the end of the day, eventually those projects finish. Eventually those projects are done. And so now what we're able to do is, instead of, God forbid, down the road where we have to look at, oh my gosh, we got to pull money from the general fund just to pay overhead costs, or we got to lay off people, we avert that by now having a bigger population to help support our fixed costs. And again, worst case scenario, it's a 90-day agreement. I think it's going to be a very good, very healthy process.
Thank you. Sure, go ahead.
One question
Sure.
for Jeff. Jeff, there's been a fair amount of debate about whether this will or it won't improve permitting services in Highland Beach. Are you very confident that this is going to make things smoother and easier for people in Highland, forgetting about the money? But from a service standpoint, you're hearing about, well, cars got to go back and forth. You're saying, well, you'll have a lot more resources in-house. They're not yours, but they'll be in-house. Are you pretty confident that that will indeed be the case, that services in terms of permitting for Highland Beach residents will improve?
I am extremely confident. We already started implementing some of these to test the waters, because again, the problem was in the past, they're giving me a plumbing inspector for 2 hours to try to get things done. Now that plumbing inspector, and I picked one that is certified in both, for example, plumbing and mechanical. So he can not only do the inspections, but he's also certified for plan review. So now he's going to be in-house for those 8 hours and be able to respond. And specifically for Highland Beach residents, and we've already done this because I tested the waters to bring him in for a little bit to see how it's working with the workload. There were times where he went out, failed an inspection. It was a quick fix, and he was able to go back out in the afternoon to re-inspect versus them having to wait a whole other day and waste another day. We're like, we can go back out now, because instead in the past, okay, he did the inspection, he failed it. And now you call him and he's like, well, I'm in Belle Glade, which is, I know, because it used to happen to me. I used to do inspections here, fail it. And then they'd call me and I'd be like, I'm in Belle Glade, I can't come back. But now they're here. And when they're here in the building department, they're going through blueprints, they're getting things out quicker. So right now we're at a place, just testing the waters without the extra load, where we've already improved the service by having these people available. So once we get that 30% increase, it's going to be able to continue, and we'll be able to easily absorb that with the current workload. So the answer to your question is I'm absolutely very positive about this, very confident.
And Marshall, you agree with that? And plus you're going to raise his rent and administrative fees, right? His HR fees?
You know me always. But yeah, I think what Jeff is saying is correct. I also ran a building department in my previous job. And it's true, when you don't have access to those folks, you got to depend on a consultant to give you, I'll be there between 1 and 3. Then the next day goes, who's doing the plan review? We got to send it off. The idea is we'll get more staff here that'll be carried, that additional load will be carried by the revenues created by Gulfstream. So Gulfstream is going to provide the money for us to get more resources available to us. So that works quite well for us. Again, we will adjust the admin charges. I agree, we should start looking at facility planning and long-term stuff. I think we all understand that. Unfortunately, I can only go so far into that building department. As much as I'd like to go deeper, my conscience here tells me how deep I can go and pulls me back so I don't go too far and get us in any trouble that way.
Can I make a comment, David?
Okay.
David?
Go ahead, Ron.
So kind of back to the beginning, the first comment from our resident there, the contractor, I guess, lawyer. He mentioned that this was a benefit to our commission. The benefit, he was looking at this whole thing as a benefit to our commission. That's what he said, his first words, which it just shows you where their head is in this thing. When you look at the contract, once again, 90 days. There's no reason to put cap in the contract. We can use anybody. that the idea is, I mean, if we're moving along with this and Jeff says, oh, we're switching gears here and we're moving to a different contractor, what's the difference? Also, we don't have anything to do with complaints and so forth. All the complaints and all the administrative stuff goes through the other town. All we're doing is administering the cap part of it, and that's it. And as far as insurance goes, we have a hold harmless clause in there. We have insurance. Once again, this is, we've had attorneys look at it. Everything that everybody's brought up here that's a possible negative has already been reviewed and reviewed and reviewed, unfortunately, by our commission, by everybody in the town. I mean, this is just a waste of time. We've spent over an hour on it already.
Okay, I'm sorry.
May I clarify something?
Sure, go ahead. Just
First off, in response to the board member's comments, I don't know if he's referring to me directly, but my concern was for the town to have protection against liability. We all know, we all have seen the Surfside debacle that occurred last year, or I think it was a year.
We're worried about that.
We all know now that we take on the responsibility as a town for any actions that are condoned by the town officials. So we're now in a situation where if we sanction a building official, or we sanction a building compliance officer, cap, government, whatever, we're going to indirectly potentially have liability if they fail to do something which creates a problem in Surfside. Instead of being restricted to the problems associated with Highland Beach, now we have Surfside as a possible plaintiff or some individual in Surfside has been affected by it. And as far as, with all respect to Mr. Delaney's comments, the Surfside situation is going to create a significant amount of additional work for the building department. We have a number of condominiums that are very old along the coast here, and that's going to create a situation where we're going to eventually have inspections and problems. So my concern for the town is that a contract be effectuated that gives the town full protection. I don't care if you have to put a $10 million policy in place or a $20 million policy in place. It's nothing compared to what happened in Miami. And I think that this board, as a financial advisory board, has a responsibility to this town to make sure that whatever decisions are made here today, and the commission, of course, passes it along, that we're protecting the town from any problems and any fallout from these contracts. And by the way, I have no problem with the interlocal agreement. I think it's a wonderful benefit if we can give Gulfstream some additional help, but as long as it doesn't come back to flash back on us.
thank you.
I agree there should be an increase in the liability insurance. Can we pass that cost off to Gulfstream to pay?
Yes. The answer is yes.
So why wouldn't we do that?
We can definitely do that.
And I think we definitely should do that, is my opinion.
We thank you. Now, everything that's been said here, again, is opinion. And I hope the commission will look at the questions that were asked here. And I think they're excellent questions. I'll give you my own opinion. My own opinion is it's an excellent thing to go forward with from every point of view, in my own opinion. And I thank you folks very much. Thank you. The next item is the year-to-date financial report. And Davis, back to you.
Yes, thank you. First of all, thank you. I'm trying a new format, okay? And I would love to get your feedback. Is everyone leaving during my presentation? No, I'm joking. All right, thank you. And so, I like numbers, okay? And so what I've provided for you, let me just walk through really quick, okay? Just so we're all on the same page. All right, so the first page, and you'll also notice that I put line numbers. Oh, no, I'm not talking about the budget update yet. No, sorry. You can get rid of that. That'll be next. So everyone in your agenda, you guys have your the budget format there. So the first one is, and I have numbers there on the left-hand side. So in case you have a question, you can sit there and go, hey, David, what's going on with line number 21? So it makes it simple. But the first thing that we're looking at here is we're looking at the top part is revenues. Bottom part is expenditures. from left to right, the first one there is budget. This is the annual budget for the entire year. The next column over, which says budget to July 31st, 2022. All I did there is I take the budget for the entire year, right? Divided by, in this case, 10 months, and we're at 83%. So what that number there means, this is 83% of the number to the left, okay? It's straight line. And then what we have in the next column, these are our actuals, okay, through July 31st, 2022. And then what I have there, the other column there is budget versus actuals. Now, you will notice ad valorem revenue. Man, look at our ad valorem revenue, right? It's 21%. You know, we're gangbusters. Well, everyone here knows that we get a large majority. We almost get 70% of our revenue, right? Ad valorem. We get that in, November, December, and January. All the other revenues that you see here. Oh, and by the way, lines number 1 through 10, that's just the general fund. Okay. Lines 11 through 15, those are those other funds that we'll talk about.
Can anybody see this? I can't, is the presentation, can everybody see it besides?
Oh, no, it wasn't part of the presentation. It was part of your board package.
What I'm talking about is, are you showing numbers right now?
No.
No.
Okay. All right.
This right here was part of your board package.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah, page 19 of your board package. Sorry about that. Do you see that now? Page 19, 19.
Yeah, well, that's where I'm going. Okay.
So and feel free to stop me at any time with any questions. So anyway, so at the end of the day, what this one page compares is it compares our budget up to July 31st to our actuals to July 31st. And here what I've done is I've also added notes. I've added notes on the right-hand side that said why kind of the increase, why the decrease, okay? Now, if we flip the page over, and now we're on page 20, it's the same data, but it's just broken out into by each of the funds. Let me give you an example. I'm on page 20. Page 20, if I were to look at line number 10, that's total revenues. Total revenues of the general fund through July 2022, 11.5 million. You know, it would be fun. Let's go to the building fund. Sorry. Let's go to the building fund, line number 10, under the column building fund. They brought in $1.3 million of revenue. Okay. And what are their expenditures? Their expenditures through July 31st are line number 22, $893,000. And so line number 26 shows that right now we are at a positive $326,000. Now, you also notice that lines number 12 and line number 23, you see on the totals where they match, those are the inter-fund transfers that we do between the funds. And what else I did is lines 27 through 34, I gave you a summary of what those transfers are. Which department transfers to which department and why. And so at the end of the day, what I've done is I've taken our accounting software. I was able to contort it into this position and able to close the books on a monthly basis, look at where the holes are, correct those through adjustments, and be able to spit this type of report out every month. And so at the end of the day, you can see that right now, we're doing well. Look at line number 26, right? Line number 26 shows that we're going to have $2.5 million surplus. But keep in mind, remember that all the ad valorem taxes have already come in, right? And so we still have expenditures to go through for the following 2 months. But what we'll be able to do is with this kind of what I would call a dashboard is we will be able to track on the first page, line number 19, how we are doing to our budget. And then page 20 shows us, okay, well, how is each of the individual funds doing up to year to date? Let me give you another example. Look at our water fund. Water fund on page number 20. Look at number 26, line number 26. That's a negative number. Yeah, so water fund is losing revenue. And at the end of the day, this also comes into our recommendation, obviously, to continue with the rate increase for effective October 1st. But again, staff is here to answer any questions to the board that they may have. But I just wanted to kind of walk through because governments tend to look at how are we doing compared to our budget, number one, and that's what page 19 shows you. How are we doing compared to our budget? Page 20 shows you, okay, how is each fund individually doing? And then the third thing I think that it answers, especially on page 20, lines 27 through 34, everyone keeps talking about these transfers, right? Going back and forth, right? Well, here, I broke it out as to why the transfers are and to who's getting what. So anyway, I'm here to answer questions.
First, one comment. In the future, I think if we had a slide for those people who are watching.
I
to
apologize.
understand what we're talking about here.
You're-
Would be very helpful.
You're absolutely right. Thank you, sir. I will definitely do that. Sorry.
Thank you. Questions? Anybody have any questions? Okay, great.
Any questions? And again,
Yeah, I have one question.
go ahead, sir.
When you talk about the fire department and so forth and the numbers on here.
Yeah.
You're taking into consideration what a true up might change the numbers or?
That's a very good point. Yeah, we do, and thank you for bringing that to my attention. We do have a true up provision at the end of that contract. These numbers here don't account for that, but that's a very good question. And you know what? I can point to right where their expenditure would be. If you go to page 20, column general fund, line number 16, public safety. So public safety, right, includes fire and it includes police department. So that's where that expenditure would be in. Yeah, so a good question. We'll have a better true up of that at the end of the fiscal year, September. But that's a very good question.
No other questions?
I have
We'll move on.
one other one.
Go ahead.
Is there anything on here that concerns you? And in the future, perhaps you could highlight anything for us that might be of concern to you on a 3-month ongoing kind of a basis?
Absolutely. I will do that right now. No, nothing concerns me. We're moving swimmingly. Again, you can see there on page 19, lines number 4 through 7. I put my notes, gap will close by the end of the year because see franchise fees, charges for services, fines and forfeitures, those monies come in monthly. Okay. And so, but they come in and they will close the gap. But right now we're not off a lot on those items. Also, here's another interesting thing. Now, page number 19, line number 9, reserve. We had budgeted to pull into revenue over $642,000 of reserves. But we have not had to do that. and that's a good thing.
It's good. Yep.
So congratulations. We're doing well, and our commitment as a board is to continue that trajectory.
Thank you. Okay, let's move along now for no additional questions to the employee health insurance renewal. And we refer this item to Assistant Town Manager Eric Mara. Eric, back.
And he's up.
And he's up.
Good afternoon. So it is that time of the year again where we need to excuse me, make a decision about the town's health insurance coverage. And excuse me, I'm sorry. Shouldn't have ran back. Our wonderful benefits consultants the past 2 years, thank you, have been able to negotiate around a 2.5% decrease in costs for our health insurance. This year didn't get so lucky, but our renewal came in around 40%. But Mark and his team was able to negotiate that back down to 14%. And the other companies came in right around the same price, slightly lower in some areas. They just didn't offer exactly the same benefit level as Humana. For our short-term, long-term, and life insurance and vision, they all came back with no increase. And our dental came back with a 12% increase, which really amounts to about $4 per employee. Town staff is recommending we stick with our current providers. And I was going to turn this part over to David, but he walked out. So I'll go grab him. Give me 1 second.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
So my question is, with this new law that just passed that goes into effect, I think some of it went into effect now, which helps with premiums of insurance, health insurance. Can you reduce your costs going back and rebidding it now that this law is in place to reduce your premiums?
I'm not familiar with that, but I want you to understand that we do have an insurance, the town has an insurance broker through Brown and Brown, and part of what their responsibility and their contract to the town is, right, to go out to the marketplace and compare and contrast. When we
They
first
probably did this before this law went into effect. Now that this law is in effect,
What law
I
is
bet
this?
you're going to get a reduction in rates.
Well, that would be that would be fantastic. I don't know what the law is, but offline or after this meeting, if you want to send me the data, we can have staff look into it. I'll be more than happy to do that.
Okay, and I would reach out to the broker as well, because they probably know the law better than I do. But I know there's a provision in this law to lower premiums for health insurance.
Are you talking about the federal law?
Yeah, the federal law.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know that it comes down, the improvement on the ACA side of it, I don't believe comes into effect on these. It's more of the marketplace. But I'll ask, I'll get an email. I'll talk to our broker, have him clarify exactly. I'm not an expert in this area.
Right.
But I don't know that because he would have had that in effect. He's a pretty good guy, pretty attuned broker, and would have got that to us.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we will look into it and get back to you. Yeah, I'll give you a formal response, but I don't believe it has bears down at the moment.
Yeah.
But if we go back to what you were showing, and we can look at David's numbers as it relates to.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I could. I'm sorry, Marshall. I did. I had to go to the restroom real quick. So what I've tried to show here is. Yep, and you guys have it on your screen there. Obviously, is number one on the left-hand side, you have the different insurance types, right? You have the short-term disability, long-term disability, dental, vision. These are all your boilerplate things. And I have what our current policy is, the monthly premiums, and then what our renewal is, the difference in price there and the percentage. One thing I do want to shine light on, the lower third part, I want to make sure that you understand that we have three different insurance options for our staff, which is nice. The first one there, I think it's called the POS option number 25. That's your basic boilerplate insurance premium. No frills, kind of, higher deductible and whatnot. Now, the town graciously and thankfully pays 100% of the employees portion of that. And that's pretty commonplace. Now, if an employee would like to elect better enhanced coverage, we give two other options. But as my footnote there denotes on the bottom, those footnote options, obviously the employee has to pick up the difference in the price. And so, and that's fine. I think that's reasonable. Again, we'll look back at our budget presentation. Staff had predicted a 7%. I was off on that one. This one came back at about 14%. But at the end of the day,
That total change is what, about 65,000?
Yeah. I mean, we'll look through it. Again, we have to look at things on fund on each department, but to the general fund, which is obviously the bigger one, health insurance increase $47,000 in total.
So I think we looked at this last year and the increase is consistent with what I'm seeing in, private business.
Mm.
So I'm not sure if any other members of our board here have any concerns.
Our Marshall, employees seem to be happy with the current Humana insurance plans.
Generally, I think everybody's, maybe you might know from speaking with other doctors, some of doctors are electing to not take Humana. It's not across the board, but I think it's just a lack of doctors. So if you want to go back into practice, we'd all appreciate it. So there's a lack of doctors around. So we do face those challenges, but I don't think it's an insurance-based challenge. It's just the access to it. But everybody's generally been liking the service, the level of benefit, not a lot of complaints, but the little complaints that we do get is that some doctors have elected not to take Humana, and not wholesale. Like, we're not hearing a lot, but certain employees, like, I was going to this doctor, he no longer takes Humana.
Yeah, and that can work in both directions. I mean, it can be a problem if their panel isn't big enough, as it were. But it can also be a real problem for people if the employer decides to switch plans. And then you get a whole new panel of physicians, and oftentimes people will have to be forced into changing from somebody that they really know, which can be a significant downside for people.
And again, some of the good part of this is that if somebody elects that I just have to stay with this doctor, this point of service option does allow you to go out of network. You're just going to pay for it a little bit, but there are caps on if you make that choice. But again, we haven't had a lot of complaints. Most people like it. They're very appreciative to the community, to the commission, that base level plan is provided to employees. That allows us to remain competitive in the marketplace to attract employees, along with the HRA wrap and just kind of holding pat, if you will. The employees are appreciative for sure.
Do you have a system for finding out what the employees think about their plan, or is it more just the people decide to complain about something or other?
Well, the beauty of a small town is everybody tells us. So we're always together and close by. So it's not like a big town where you're kind of hidden. And if they want to complain, they're always glad to go to Eric and let them know, if there's a problem or an issue. Our broker's been pretty good and receptive. Mark, Tina, and his staff, they do a good job that if we can't figure it out, they'll step in for us and be that in between. And what I believe Mark was telling us is that Humana does come with a customer service liaison, if you will, to help our broker and our employees get their questions answered if they get stonewalled, if you will.
Yeah, and on the back page of page 24, I had broken out what that change by fund is. And so you can see there, right, the general fund, I had to adjust the budget by $47,000. The building fund, I had to adjust that by 7,000. And the water department fund, I had to adjust that by, close to 11,000. So in total, about a $65,000 budget hit. But I obviously, I think it's good to retain good staff, and the town has done that graciously along with the board to provide these options of health insurance. And so, yeah.
Any other questions?
One quick question, please. Going from 40% down to 14, without any, the 40% doesn't surprise me. The insurance companies always start like that, and they'll work with you, but it usually means some changes in benefits, co-pays, deductibles. I'm assuming none of that happened. This 14% is exactly the same coverage as the prior year. Am I correct?
That is correct. We're guessing they're making up for some of the reductions and some of the COVID period, trying to regain some of lost profits or recuperating expenses that they had. I think David came to me and says, what were we like working with used car salesmen? It starts at 40, we end at 14%.
Yeah, it's
bartering is this, but luckily our consultant was able to get it down to a more palatable number than the 40%, which would have definitely pushed us to Florida Blue or another provider.
Last year's negative increase was, I'm sure, a surprise to everybody. So I don't think the 14% is more reasonable if you look at it as a 2-year change, minus 2.5 and plus 14. So I think we're in pretty good shape, very much so.
Okay. All right. There's no further business to come before the board. We're adjourning the meeting at 1:04 p.m. and thank
Did you,
very
sir, I just wanted to, I have one more presentation. It's only 6 slides, and I promise,
that's all
and
right.
I apologize.
6 slides, 2 hours. Just
No. And you can, Madam Clerk, you can bring up the presentation. So again, it revolves around 3 areas of changes in the budget. Okay, so on the first slide there, you have our and it'll be yeah, sorry, you guys can't probably see that, but anyway, when I first did the budget and I first showed it to you, it was about $22.8 million. The updated, because why did I have to update it? Well, we had 3 changes. Number 1 change was the health insurance that we just discussed. Okay. Number 2 change is the FRS, the Florida Retirement System, updated their required percentage contributions. And the 3rd change, which Marshall had talked about, is the economic relief bonus that he can describe more. But basically what that is we were precluded by Florida statute from providing an additional 3% increase to our employees in this fiscal year and calling it quote unquote a bonus, but we could do it next year. And so those were the changes. You can see that overall the budget impact with these 3 changes was about a total of $388,000 or about 1.7%. And so if you go to the next slide. Okay, so again, in order to balance a budget, you can see there, this is where, so again, there were a little bit of changes in revenue. So we had changes in revenue, predominantly the Florida Economic and Demographic Research, which is what we use as staff to project out where we think our numbers are going to be. We had increased about $34,000 on that end. I decreased our revenue. You can see there, it's like $94,000 decrease. I wanted to be a little bit more conservative on certifications, copies, and lien searches. We added about $16,000 to adjustment for rate increases as far as trash service goes. We're going to have a 3% increase there because Waste Management passed on their 3% increase, which seemed reasonable. And then what we're going to do is we're going to pledge current year projected surpluses to cover the budget difference. So we're not going to be tapping into any of our reserves. And so here, so on the right-hand side, you see our changes in our revenue, which for the general fund is $269,000. And the arrow points to how is that money being allocated on the expense side? Economic relief, FRS, and insurance increases. So if you go to the next slide, you can see that I have this right here just talks about that the 3% that I had to allocate for the bonus. Obviously, business owners know that I also had to account for payroll taxes, right? That the employer pays for. And I also had to account for the FRS contribution. So that's what that shows there. Next slide. Again, you've seen these things, but I'm going to be presenting a budget update to our commission on Thursday. The next slide is obviously the health insurance and general liability type of insurance increases. Following slide, this is the building department, same kind of idea, right? All right, here's what's changed as far as the revenue goes. That $35,000, that's going to go to cover, again, those areas of the change: economic relief, FRS, health insurance increases, same thing with the water fund. So at the end of the day, the budget increased about 1.7% or $388,000. Most of that is covered through changes in our revenue forecast, as well as taking from current year surpluses and giving some economic relief to the employees and staff. But stay tuned to our meeting on Thursday and I can give you guys a full update. That's all I
Thank
have.
you very much. Thank you. Go ahead.
I just have one comment before we quit, not on the finances, but just to go back to Gulfstream one last time. I'll be real quick. And this is more like a general message rather than a specific one, but I just would encourage Marshall and the commission that really by far the biggest thing on everybody's plate, such that it dwarfs everything else, is a successful start for the new fire rescue department. And whatever else we're doing, whether it's a new Gulfstream contract or anything else, I really urge that we're sure that we have adequate, whether it's legal resources or Marshall's time or the commission's time or our building director's time, that we don't get distracted, diverted, or anything else from the successful start of that project, which is really a core life safety thing. Whereas, helping Gulfstream out, I think, is nice, but clearly neither the financials nor any of it is while it offers advantages, one of the major ones of which I think is that it's a project sponsored by people that actually work here, like Marshall and Jeff and David. But it just, none of that can be allowed to get in the way of a successful start for the fire department. That's it for me.
Anyone else? Hearing
Yeah.
none? Now, oh, sorry, Ron.
No, yeah, I agree. And as long as we all, the town, can let people do their jobs and not waste time like we did today on this, when this shouldn't have even been brought up had it been done correctly, without interruption by people who don't know what they're doing, obviously clearly out of touch with the reality of the situation. And, you know, if we can't, we gotta stop letting people, now they want to create extra commissions in effect to advise the commissions, to advise all of us on how to do our jobs, et cetera. I mean, it has to stop. I think it needs to stop now. This is a real good testament to that. I mean, everything that Jack brought up is totally 100% wrong. Not one comment he had is actual reality. And people need to stop listening to it. We need to stop listening to it and get on with governing our town correctly. And there'll be plenty of time to handle our brand new nice fire department. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you. I'll now adjourn the meeting at 1:12 PM. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Yeah, right. Now you gotta go back to the regular sandbox. Thank you, Mr. Stern.
David, good to see you.